Do you think if Scott Walker became governor that he would have an ear to defund Planned Parenthood?
Oh,
That'd
I
be
think
a
it'd be-
wonderful way to save a lot of money.
Yeah, I have no doubt whatsoever that he would defund Planned Parenthood. I think he would defund the same-sex partnerships with the University of Wisconsin. And you know, they're all telling us right now, it's just a little program, it's $1 million. No, it's, they want to expand it to all, they tried to do it in the city of Superior, and we fought them.
There's a flyer on the table that depicts all your tax dollars that are going to Planned Parenthood under the Family Planning Waiver Program, which is a $16 million tax-funded teenage birth control program in our state. So that's the way that they're inducting our young kids into the welfare culture.
Yes.
So be sure to see.
And see, this is what was my comment about birth control, is that it has now led to us counseling teenagers that you don't need to discipline yourself. You don't need to set a high moral standard in your life. You don't need to do that. After all, you're a human animal and you have no self-discipline that you need to learn, so let's just give you contraceptives. And what a terrible way to counsel children.
Something came across my computer today, and it was about the Obama health care plan that's going to be mandated for everyone. And the information that came across was 2 groups of people are not mandated to contribute to the Obama health care plan, but will receive full benefits. And the 2 groups would be any Muslims, right?
What?
And any Amish people. Both Muslims and Amish are not, the Muslims because they consider insurance gambling, and the Amish people because they just don't deal with it, they take care of their own people. So they're not required to put money into this, but yet we are required to service them. What's your opinion
Well,
of that?
first of all, healthcare, we need to think more deeply about this than some of the platitudes that we're, and the things that we're throwing against the Obama plan. I don't support Obamacare at all, but you gotta understand this. I was self-employed for over 22 years. In my healthcare, every year we raised our deductible. The cost of my healthcare went up every single year. I kept raising my deductible, and I wanna know why. And the reason is that the amount of care that's being provided to people who have no health care, I'm paying for it. We already have universal health care. It's just that those who can pay for it. Now, we have to admit that that's going on if we're gonna honestly look at how we're gonna deal with health care. Because I have people that tell me, I don't want the government having anybody forced to pay for health care. I'm sorry, my government's forcing me to pay for 30% of my, up to 30% of my premium when I was self-employed, because I figured it out, was going for the uninsured, and I was being forced to pay for health care that I shouldn't be paying for. We have to find a way for more people to pay for their health care, or we have to refuse service. You have to come to one decision or the other. So,
Well, I grew up when you didn't have to have health insurance, the government wasn't involved, and you could afford to go to the hospital, you could afford to have a doctor. So we need to get back to that, where we each take care of our own, our own responsibility and our own health care, and get rid of all this overhead.
there are some that said that, and I don't know, I haven't studied this. There's some that said as soon as they introduced insurance
Yes,
into the healthcare system,
That's
that
where-
skyrocketed
that's
the
where the
cost.
cost went up.
And because I'm like you, we did not have health care till my brother was about 11 or 12 years old, so that would have made me about 14. We never had health care.
That trial lawyers being, malpractice thing has just skyrocketed the cost of our health, I think. Somebody that, he didn't put that stitch in quite right, and we'll get some trial lawyer and we'll screw the doctor or the hospital out of millions. That has contributed greatly, I think, to our health care costs.
It's contributing to the cost of doing business. It's contributing to this lawsuit environment that we have. Yeah, I agree.
Do you have any information on how much of our dollars in the state are being spent toward education, healthcare, food, shelter for illegal aliens?
You know, I don't know how you would divide it out, because this is why it's difficult. And I'm rounding up, mind you, from our legislative person back here, but about $6 billion of our general fund, of what, 12 or 13, goes to education. Now, in that education component, we have children that are in our school systems that are illegal. And so you'd have to separate out every single budget where a benefit is derived by someone who is illegally here. Do you know who the biggest backer and the biggest promoter of children illegally immigrating to the United States is? WEAC.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many teachers nationwide that they employ because those children are in their system? And they're saying, you can't take these illegal children out of our school system because we'll lose jobs. State of California's, this is true, this is absolutely true. They're the ones that are fighting these propositions that the state for against illegal aliens. And part of the problem is they know that classroom sizes will shrink and that there'll be less children in the system if you take out the illegals. And so they actually have an official policy. The union does, because they make big dollars off the illegal. This is why this problem is going to be hard to fight. They make big dollars off teaching illegal children in their classrooms. So you got to take the education component, you've got to take the healthcare component, you got to take all the different components that go to illegals. And I don't know if anybody's ever done something exhaustive as that to find out the true cost of illegals in our state.
I just got an email today that kind of listed with references to newspapers and Snopes and everything else. Somewhere in the United States, in the area of 380, if I'm correct, $1 billion we use to feed, clothe, medical care, educate, and by the way, a large percentage of our prison population is illegal aliens
Yes.
that are naughty,
Yes.
and we park them
About
away.
30%.
I wouldn't
About
know.
30%.
So $380 billion, boy, if we stopped that, we could certainly seal our border.
And in addition to that, the illegal aliens
Plenty
that
of
are up
money.
here send most of their money back to Mexico, and that comprises
Yes.
about a third of the Mexican total gross national product.
That's right.
Well, we've kind of been talking about this, but I would just, we are not in the same position that Arizona's in, but what is your position on the immigration problem that we have? And along with that, the amnesty which is being tried to be crammed down our throats.
We can never violate the right, ever violate the right of a person who has legally immigrated this country and obeyed the laws to get here. If you diminish that process and in any way you make that process less than what it should be, it's wrong. And so anybody here illegally, just like I have a police department, if you're speeding, you're going to get pulled over for speeding. They don't care what circumstance in which you're speeding under. If you're going past the speed limit, you're going to get a ticket, and it's wrong. That shouldn't change just because we have people here illegally. They should exit the country. If they're not here legally, they shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be here, plain and simple.
The only time I ever called our governor's office is when Doyle wanted to give guaranteed home loans to illegals. All I said to, of course, we talked to some clerk, I said, what part of that word illegal does that man not understand?
Well, we're also giving in-state tuition, by the way, which is a 60% subsidy on tuition towards the illegals in Wisconsin.
Oh, no.
I wanted to ask you, Joint Finance just, in June, I think, the 26th of June or something, voted to give $807,600 to start the documenting of all traffic stops now by policemen.
Yes.
To see if we're racial profiling in the state.
Yes.
I assume that the city of Superior has to, because everybody has to do it starting January 1st now.
Yes.
And what kind of a burden does that put on your people?
I was just with the Wisconsin Police Chiefs annual gathering. In fact, spoke to their group and then met with them over lunch. And here's what we are setting our police departments up for. Guess what? Trial lawyers. It's the only reason why this data is being collected, so police departments can be sued. So the whole thing is they're going to take this data and say you stop so many of this race and so many of this race, so many of this race. So they'll take an entire class of people if it exceeds the averages for that area or for the state or for whatever it is, and they can bring class action suits to say, you have taken this minority, you've had more traffic stops with this minority, it doesn't fit the demographics of your area or the state, and therefore we can sue you. It's the only reason. This is a trial lawyer-driven issue, because they're finding every way they can to get more business. And so, and by the way, it's not as difficult to collect the data because we already have to collect data. All data for traffic stops, arrests, there's an very intricate data entry process we already go through. That's how you get your, your national state crime statistics and all. That's how we get the data as to know how to, where to enforce in our city. But this kind of data, again, is racially driven. This kind of data, again, is designed for trial lawyers to find out where, they can find a community wrong, and then here comes the lawsuits.
I appreciate you. I'm gonna ask one more question, then we're gonna cut it off, because you've been doing great. You support this commuter rail train, and will you, if you're, you have the governors here, just tell them to exit.
If you listen to some of my opponents, they would say I do, but this would be an odd position for me, seeing for over 5 years I have been, see, you guys are in the southern state and you're talking about that train between Madison and Milwaukee. I have been involved in opposing the train between Superior, Wisconsin and Minneapolis, Minnesota, the North Star train. It's $1 billion boondoggle. When we already, by the way, have private companies that shuttle people very nicely for 1/10 the cost, and by the way, those companies make a profit doing it, between these two cities.
Bus routes and things?
Well, actually bus routes, and now they've also got these 15-passenger vans. There are all kinds of little companies that have sprouted up and said, hey, we'll take you anywhere. And by the way, they used to run 5 times a day and 8 times a day. Now they're running like 10 times a day. And the private sector's taking care of all transportation needs for this. I have fought vigorously the North Star train, and I've been totally on the record. Again, I have said from the very beginning, if it can pay for operating costs and infrastructure, the key is infrastructure, because they claim operationally it will pay for itself, it won't. I oppose anything that's not free market.